This is Smarter San Diego TV.
We have a very special treat for you today to kick off today's show. We've brought back to the orange carpet psychology professor Ayesha Suneja and professor of psychiatry at UCSD Tahir Bhatti to tell us about 3 ways that meditation helps with relationships. Now, here they are, Ayesha and Tahir.
Here they are. Welcome back to the yellow couch and the orange carpet. Thank you guys for joining us.
Thank you so much for having us.
This is a great topic, and we're doing a real special here, so we have an extended segment for you guys to talk about this. Meditation, relationships. Relationships, obviously something that you deal with in all facets of life.
Absolutely.
Family, not just, a significant other.
Absolutely. Family,
Coworkers. So when we say relationships, I'm assuming you mean relationships across the board. Is that right?
Yeah, it can absolutely be for relationships across the board. We're actually talking more about couple relationships as well.
Okay.
But you'll find you're going to have the same dynamics are going to come up in any relationship.
Okay.
Mother, father, child, friend, and things like that. So yeah, it can absolutely apply to all relationships.
3 specific techniques today, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or 3 ways that you can use meditation to help your relationships. And we'll stick with the couples idea, and then just know that we can apply that to other relationships as well.
Absolutely.
So what are those 3?
Yeah, great question. Derek, what we're looking at is when people actually have conflict in a relationship, let's say you have an argument, you're getting into a fight, there's a technique where you actually use meditation to try to kind of de-escalate or kind of help to calm the situation down. So it's in the midst of having conflict. That's going to be one of the techniques we're going to do. The other technique is, now let's say you're meditating. You have your own practice that we're trying to cultivate people to have. So when you get done meditating, we're actually going to journal about the other person and kind of use that to support each other and have something you're writing when you're done meditating. Not in the context of where you're connecting with each other, just kind of connecting with yourself and what's coming up. And the last technique is when you're actually wanting to do it, when you're not having conflict, you're actually getting along in a good space, we actually do it together, a very specific type of meditation that's kind of heart connecting. So that's going to be something we're going to have that, so when you're having conflict, you have a technique. One is you're doing kind of on your own, and when you're meditating or after you're done meditating, you're journaling that you both can use. And the last one is actually just when you're getting along.
I wonder if there's a meditation for helping people also get into the space where they can find that person, right? Because there's a lot of that. Like, it's so innate for us to want to be with someone, right? It's like a natural thing. And so I think a lot of people get themselves in that situation because they want that. But then when problems come up, because they will, they don't really know what to do. So this is a really great opportunity for people to come up with some ideas about how to resolve some of those things.
Absolutely.
As they come up. So let's talk about the first one.
Yeah.
Conflict.
Yeah, it's a great one. So, conflict, here's the challenge, is that when you're actually in a fight, we're activated, we're upset, we're angry, we're triggered, and in that moment, it just kind of keeps escalating, right? We're getting more angry. And the goal is, can you have something that you've been practicing on your own? So it's not something we're just saying, first fight you have, try this, right? We also want to both say we want you to cultivate kind of a meditative practice during the day, but then actually bring it in to the context of having a fight. Now, why is that? Because typically when you're having a fight, someone says something and you're going to react, right? So it's that stimulus reaction. It's like instantaneous, right? You can't separate the two. But what's going to happen is if you find out when you meditate, and a lot of studies show this, it actually decreases your reactivity. So in that moment when you guys are going at it, you can say, okay, look, let's just take a moment, and one person has to say it. Someone has to take that initiative. Let's take a moment, let's actually sit down, and let's do that technique with the breathing, the mindfulness, the breath awareness in that moment when you're doing it. Because what's happening is it's creating a space where then you guys can reconnect. Because when you have conflict, you're disconnecting. And meditation is all about reconnecting. Reconnecting to yourself, reconnecting to your highest, your best self, and then also choosing to reconnect with the person you're having that conflict with.
So like a pattern interrupt, if you will.
Absolutely.
A reset button.
Absolutely, yeah.
Ayesha, this is obviously a big deal, on the clinical side, because there are real things happening there, from a psychological perspective of we're in a conflict and our ego gets involved and it's like, oh, I'm right, and all that stuff. So that's a lot of it. Yeah. And so this technique that you guys are talking about of using meditation, what is the technique and how does it apply?
So the way that Tahir was mentioning, in the middle of a conflict, you're so right. I mean, the ego is wanting to be right in that moment. So if one of the partners, for example, when Tahir and I, when we're in a conflict, he will usually say, let's take a minute and let's just go and sit, just individually. And if you have a meditation space in your home, or you have an altar, you have a quiet space, a space that's made just for you to be in, in your own space where you can meditate, we'll find 2 different corners of that meditation space. And we'll sit and we'll just try to reconnect with our deepest or highest self. And from that place, we can bring that reactivity down. That studies show that anger can move through you in 1 minute if you do nothing about it. Of course, we can give it a longer time, right? We can take that anger and make it an hour or a year or 10 years, and that affects biologically and physiologically our body. But if you actually just sat down and did nothing, that anger could move through you in a minute. In 60 seconds, you could be rid of the anger, and you could just sit there and allow whatever else is coming up to be there. So we'll take a minute to sit separately, let the anger move through us, and then just allow whatever feelings to come up. And when we both feel that we're ready to reconnect, we'll come out of that meditative space and try to reconnect.
So you mentioned anger, which is an interesting one. I used to have little fits of rage long before the days of meditation, but and I don't know if this is right or wrong, but I used to want to, like break stuff.
Sure.
That's what I wanted to do when I got mad. Like I would see something and I wanted to break it. A lot of keyboards lost their lives. A lot of phones at my desk, they got destroyed.
Right.
And for some reason I always felt better afterwards, but then I felt bad because it's like, I shouldn't feel better about smashing something. But maybe, is that part of the anger moving through you? There's a more productive way to do it, but I mean, is that part of, what you have to do is recognize that it's there, see it for what it is, maybe do something to help release it, go for a jog.
Well, that's
Something
a
like
very
that.
healthy way. That's what we call sublimation, right? It's a really healthy defense mechanism. If you have a lot of anger turned inward turns into depression. So we don't want to numb the anger. People use alcohol or drugs or some other coping mechanism that they believe is helping repress their anger, but that anger is still going to be there and it'll be triggered again. We don't want to numb it out. We also don't want to use an unhealthy coping mechanism. So expressing it instead of turning it inward is always the best way. But I love what you said about you going for a jog.
Yeah.
Or doing painting, dancing, drawing, any kind of form of expression to move the anger. Journaling, writing, scribbling, people like to punch a pillow or scream into a pillow, whatever, and sometimes they break things. I mean, there's this entire unit in New York where the entire thing that they have set up is you get up in these lines and they have plates for you pay, and then you smash the plates. And it's done as a really like a therapeutic tool to release your anger in a controlled, safe environment.
Okay, so let's say I'm in a conflict right now with my significant other. I'm watching this video because, all right, techniques for meditation, relationships. Please. So what do I do? What if I've never meditated before? I mean, what can I do right now in the midst of this conflict with my significant other to help a situation?
Yeah, great question. So the key is you want to be able to take a time out, and that's what all kind of therapists say. Couples, counselors, couples coaches say, take a time out. But they don't tell you what to do. They say go neutral corners. Really, if you can take a time out and say, okay, we just need to take a time out. We just need to take a break. You can even go time out. Guys are like that. Say I need to take a time out. But take a time out. Go to neutral corners, into a separate room if you want, and just sit down because it's about sitting. Meditation is about sitting, comfortable chair, and then just start tracking your breath. Right, just breath awareness. So you can easily say, I'm breathing in as you breathe in. I'm breathing out. Just saying it internally, quietly, mentally, or just noticing the sensation of your breath. Or you can count your breath in and out if you want to. Whatever technique works for you. It's really just about sitting and allowing that anger, that, as we were talking about before, letting it move through you, right? But it's really having that breath awareness. And then when you're both ready, you come back. And if there's still conflict, you go back and do it again, right? It's really having this really easy, it's breath awareness and sitting quietly, eyes closed, if you've never meditated. But now, if you start meditating on a daily basis, you'll find this technique will get more and more powerful because you're practicing on your own separately.
What I found is an interesting one for me, especially for teaching people who ask me, like, how do I meditate? How do I meditate? Is to just say, as you breathe, and one thing we take for granted is breath, right?
Absolutely.
We assume it's going to be there, but we don't know. We're not keeping track of how much oxygen there is on the planet, and we don't have a meter or anything like that, but every breath, we assume it's there, and if it's not there, that's it.
Yeah.
That's the fragility of life, right?
Yeah.
So if you could just spend some time and as you breathe in, just really soak it in and just just breathe in that life and go, oh, it's there, it's right there.
Absolutely.
That's life, and I've got it, and it's there, and it's for me to access, and I don't have to worry about it, and just breathe it in and feel that. If you can just kind of think about it like that, sometimes that is all it takes to then shift it over just a little bit.
Absolutely. So it's whatever technique works, because really there are thousands of meditations to sit with. So find one that works, or play with what we're talking about, or go online. I mean, literally, that you can get information so accessible about different types of meditation.
Let's talk about the second way. I know we have 3 to cover today. Ayesha, jump in here.
Yeah, the second technique is when you are actually not in the middle of a conflict, but you'd like to create a deeper connection with your partner. It is having your own meditation practice. So, when we say meditation, it could be a practice where you decide that every day you're going to sit for 5 minutes. 3 minutes. That's a meditation practice. It can go all the way to an hour, 90 minutes, as long as you'd like. But if you can take 3 minutes out of your day, 5 minutes out of your day to cultivate a practice where you can sit for 5 minutes every morning, then that's what we're talking about. So you have a journal in your meditation space, and when you're done with your meditation practice, whether it be 5 minutes or 60 minutes or 90 minutes, when you come out of that meditative space, grab your journal and start to write something about your partner. Something that you admire about them, something that you love about them, something that you just found really interesting about them, something that you've never told them, something that you believe that you trust about them. And when you write that, you're writing it really from really kind of a meditative space, right? You're writing it from your highest self. And when you're done writing it, you don't show it to them, you just put it back in that meditation space. And then it's kind of an honor system, because what your partner then does is that when they sit down to meditate, maybe before the meditation or after, they can open and they can read the journal and see what you've written about them. And then they'll sit with their meditation, and after they're done, they're going to put a date and they're going to journal as well. So anytime that you need to reconnect with your partner, you can go back to that journal. You can read what you wrote about them when you're in a space where you think this person, there's no way I can get along with them, and this person is not the one for me. You can go back and read what you really did feel for them when you were in a space where you were not in touch with your ego, but you were in touch with your higher self, because you just came out of your meditation.
So make sure you journal after meditation, not
After
before.
meditation. Exactly. That's the
Carl is such a jerk.
That's not good. That's not good.
And would you say 3 to 5 minutes? I think, what you're saying is 3 to 5 minutes of uninhibited, cell phones off, the
Yes.
phone is turned off in the house, there's no sounds going on, there's no
Absolutely.
distractions, everything's completely shut down.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's what you're talking about.
Everything is shut down, and there's no judgment or criticism within those 3 to 5 minutes that I'm not doing this right, there's thoughts coming, why is this not working correctly? It's a lot of, if you can just have active acceptance for whatever shows up in those 3 to 5 minutes, allow whatever is there to be there, then that's more meditative than actually judging and controlling. Because remember, meditation is not about controlling your thoughts. It's about not letting your thoughts control you.
Right.
And it's a process.
It is a process, no question. And I think that's one of those things. Now, let me ask you this question, just sort of on the other side. Let's say someone practices that technique.
Yeah.
And they go and they're not in a fight, they're not in a conflict,
Right.
but they go and they want to cultivate a practice and they start meditating. And let's say the thoughts that are coming to their head are that this person's not right for me. Let's say it's not positive. Let's say they're going, we really aren't a good fit, or something like that. Do you think that would create confusion? Should someone listen to that more so than they should listen to kind of how they are on a daily basis?
The point happens, it happens to a lot of us. So we go through these challenges when we're with a person saying, is this the right person? Right? And that may come up in meditation, because when you quiet yourself down, doubts may come in, thoughts may come in, as you were saying, even negative self-talk can come in. But remember, meditation is really about connection. And the core of what we're talking about is you have to connect to yourself and your truth. And it's not one time. So if you sit down and meditate one day and it goes, this person's not right for me. Okay, let's sit down tomorrow. Sit down the next day. Is it consistent? Or just that day, 'cause you had a bad day or some negative thoughts are coming. If you're truly connecting in meditation and silence yourself, slowing yourself down, your truth, your higher self, your most loving self will come out. And if that's saying, this person is not correct for me, it'll be a consistent message, and it will come from this place of peace and love. Not from, this person's not right for me, and you're meditating, and you're that's not meditation, that's agitation. It's still the anger kind of leaking into the meditation, and that'll happen. But when you go, got done my meditation, I'm sensing this relationship may not be correct. Let me see tomorrow what happens. Let me see the next day. That's what we're talking about. And when you come out of it, you're always going to have these beautiful things like, wow, this heart-connected space. That's what meditation does, connects you to your heart, loving space, and then you'll write beautiful things about the person you're with, even if you're not meant to be with them. But that clarity will come over time. Don't make an abrupt decision, because that may change. It may just be the thought for the day. Connect. That's what we're talking about. Connect to yourself, connect to your highest self, your most loving self, if you have a belief in something bigger than you, and then you can connect to someone else and see what that truth may be.
Okay, so work on this one first.
Yeah.
I think that's a good idea.
Always what we have to do. And all these techniques are about that. When you're in the conflict, you have the first one we said, it's about conflict. Okay, I need to hold on to myself, so let's go and separately meditate, then come back together. And then as Ayesha was saying, the next one is, okay, now we're not conflict, I just need to work on myself, have a daily practice, and then do this journaling to see if we can reinforce the love that you have for the person you're with.
Which leads us to the third. Oh, so nicely.
You know, I want to say something about what Tahir was saying about connection and what you were mentioning about, is this the right person for me? I think we've all experienced that. We've experienced that.
We both have. I've had that same
Absolutely.
thing with the two of us.
Yeah, and I think that what happens is often we get into relationships, you know, afraid, is this going to work? Or even before, you know, before my relationship with Tahir, I was ready to throw relationships away. I was done. I thought there's no way I can get into a relationship because they're painful and there's a lot of stuff that comes up and things that get triggered. So what I thought was detachment, you know, the Buddhist way. Let's be detached. We don't need relationships, right? Because I'm pretty good on my own. I don't need to be in a relationship. And what I realized was, after being in a relationship with Tahir, what I realized was the detachment that I was seeking in my life was not from people, because I don't want to be detached and cold and aloof and not connecting. I want to be detached from my ego. I want to be detached from my reactions. So I can be in a loving relationship. Yes, it'll trigger me. Yes, it'll bring up uncomfortable, unhealed parts of me. But how can I stay detached from my reaction and my ego and stay connected to my partner and love?
Yeah, you mentioned the Buddhist way. I think the middle way, right, means that you're not attached or detached. That's what I think the middle way actually is.
Right.
Absolutely.
Because there's ground between those two places, and that's really where you want to kind of find yourself, ideally. Because if attachment's not good. That causes suffering, for sure.
Attachment causes suffering, but we often throw the baby away with the bathwater, right? We say attachment causes suffering. If I'm attached to my partner and my partner leaves me or abandons me or betrays me, then I will suffer. So therefore I won't get into a relationship, or I will leave a relationship because it's causing suffering. Not realizing that this person might be the catalyst for my inner healing and my inner growth, because they're here to help me heal all the unhealed parts of myself. As soon as they go away, those unhealed parts are no longer being triggered. It feels like we're okay, but we're not. They're still inside.
Yeah, still a little work to do.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the third
The
way.
third technique,
Yeah.
Do you mind if I?
Yeah, please do.
So the third technique, this is a little bit more intimate, because the first ones were doing our own meditation to fight, then kind of journaling to use that to support each other when you're not. The next one is actually where you're meditating together. And you're going to close your eyes, sit close together, facing each other. You're going to take your hand, right or left, doesn't matter, and put it over the other person's heart. I can't do it with either of you, but if someone's in front of me, they're this close, we're kind of kneeling or sitting down, putting each other, and they're putting their hand on my heart. And you usually have to do this eyes closed when you first do it. Because if you're doing eyes open, it can get very intense, because it's very like looking at someone's eyes and really looking into their soul. So it's really about having your hand on their heart and just breathing and just seeing what comes up and what you're noticing. And try that for a few minutes every day. And eventually, as we build on that technique, you can open your eyes, but make sure both people are comfortable. Sadness may come up, you may start to cry, maybe joy, laughter, but it's really about heart connecting. So you've done your own connection with your practice. In the middle of conflict, you did something to hopefully kind of go back and then come together, but now it's about doing something where it's a very loving act. Putting your hand on someone's heart is very powerful.
I agree.
Right? And doing that together, you can do it with a mother-child, a father's child. You can do it with friends. But in couples, we're really connecting on a deep level. We're opening ourselves up and baring our souls. That's why all these bells and whistles go off. We get all angry and upset. But when you do this, something softens. And this is a technique, for us, it's powerful. And sometimes we don't even do the meditating we're fighting. We're just saying, let's just do, and it really brings us back into our hearts and really makes us start crying. Versus if we're angry, there's just emotion moving through us. But that heart connection, I gotta tell you, it's a power. And no specific technique, just hand over each other's heart. You're close enough to do that, and close your eyes.
Just get in that space.
Get in that
Let
space.
that energy sort of.
And you feel something. You'll feel it.
itself
I
out.
mean, even people. I have friends who don't have the concept of what energy is, and they feel something. They feel. I think it's love. They feel that connection, that love, right?
You can try to reconnect with your partner after a conflict, and it might take 10 minutes or half an hour. This will take 1 minute.
It's powerful.
1 minute.
It really
If
is.
you
I
have
gotta tell you,
1 minute
this is.
to reconnect with your partner, even on a daily basis, at the end of the day, before you go to bed, when you
Right.
wake up in the morning, if you have 1 minute to deepen your connection with your partner, then this strategy
And
would
this
be
is a
it.
meditation. So if this is your 3-minute meditation to it, you've done it for 3 minutes. You don't have to do a little bit of all these. It could just be this one. But we want to save this one for last because it is very powerful.
That's powerful.
Just try it. Just try it and you know.
I 1000% agree. You guys are amazing. That's awesome advice. Thank you so much for coming today. It's really a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so much
Thank
for
you,
coming.
thank you.
And stick around for more Smarter San Diego TV, where we guarantee to make you smarter than everyone else, commercial free.